Hey everyone, welcome into the Sports in the Mitten podcast. It is Sunday, September 10th. I'm Thomas Beindit, here with Adam Biggers to chat about the weekend's college football action, maybe a couple other things if we get to it. Adam, how's it going? I'm a little sunburned, as you can probably tell from yesterday's game, excuse me, but
Yeah,
excited to chat.
the weather was really nice down there. The sun was out, but it was like one of those perfect. I feel like it was a little bit early though for it to be this cool. Because now I'm thinking. I remember I was talking with Jared Jansen, my camera guy, and he was like, "Yeah, man, these last couple home games are probably going to be freezing." And I feel bad for the photographers, the videographers. They're down there on the field,
Yeah.
and it can get pretty cold. So yeah, while we're up in the nice warm press box eating a bunch of food. I have to say Michigan's food was the breakfast was really good, the lunch was really good. Just I can't wait for home games. I really can't. It's a joy, and you get to watch football. So I call it an underwhelming victory from your
Okay.
end. I don't think there's any other way to describe it really. I mean, it was a win. It counts. They're 2-0, but I think it was an underwhelming victory, especially when we had discussed so much about are these young players going to get up for Cincinnati? Is the team as a whole going to be able to follow that emotional win over Florida? I mean, that's a big win to start the year. You
Mhm.
have to be able to go into the next week with the same kind of sense of purpose, and I don't think that the Wolverines really did that.
I completely agree. I didn't think it was an impressive win. I thought it was a okay one at best. They kind of muddied through the first half, got it together a little bit in the second half, but was not a win that's going to send you home thinking that this team can compete for the title, can compete for a playoff position. Maybe that's not a true representation, but certainly uh, this win would not have blown you away. I really think you can take this two ways. I think the one way to read into it is, um, and Jim Harbaugh talked about this. Very young team, a lot of guys making their first. We talked about it. They made their first start last week, but this is their first game in the big house. For a lot of the freshmen, this is round two, so to speak, and even the players back, like Khalid Hudson or even Metellus, excuse me, to an extent. Um, they
It's
haven't
Metellus.
started a lot of games. Excuse me.
It's Metellus.
Oh, okay. They were announcing it differently in the game, so I was a little
Oh,
bit.
I was watching not to get off topic, the evening. What was it? There was the late news last night on TV 12, and uh, he said Tyree Canal. And I mean, we had gone so long saying Canal, everybody gotten used to it, but it's Kinnell. But yeah, Metellus Kinnell.
Okay, yeah, that's what I had always thought it was, and Carl was pronouncing a little bit different over the loudspeaker yesterday, so maybe they'll get
Oh,
after him, I guess. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think you're gonna expect some of these games up and down performances. I think you generally see that out of young teams. Sometimes they'll get up for the big games, but a game against a team yet you're favored by 30 points over, maybe they're not going to get up. But I think the other side of things is we saw some flaws on this team. We saw an inconsistent passing attack. We saw a secondary that can give up open looks. Maybe the quarterbacks are going to have trouble getting the ball to them with the defensive line. But I think we saw some. I should also add, I thought the punting game was pretty underwhelming. Um, Obviously, they had some miscues on special teams across the board. So, I mean, I think you saw some issues, but the question is just how much to read into them based on what we were just talking about. That this is a young team. They're probably going to improve a lot still, and they're probably going to go up and down all year.
if DPJ wants to get back in that punt return role, he's going to have to do something just to prove that he's not going to muff or misfield a punt. I mean, I mentioned this last night in the post game podcast. Grant Perry doesn't give you the flash that Donovan gives you, but at least Grant Perry's waving down balls. He's secure with it. So I think that's important, especially. I mean, really, if you look at it, and not putting all the blame on one player, there were a lot of guys who made mistakes, but that misfielded punt by Donovan that essentially killed momentum for the Wolverines. I think. I mean, when they got up 14-0, you saw an offensive touchdown. Kinnell with that pick six. it's boom, they're going in for the kill, and here we go. That's what I thought. And then, like I said last night, they just inexplicably fizzled. And I thought that the right side of the offensive line was a little bit of a liability. Wilton Spate still needs to get to the level that he was last year if they hope to win any type of big game. I mean, the defense was critical in this game. 2 touchdowns from the defense. And, I mean, by the time Lavert Hill returned that.
We should add as well, for people who are critical of the defense right now, they are currently outscoring all of their opponents so far this season.
I mean, this defense, I mentioned this last night. You and I have talked about this, but if there was one thing to take from the Florida game, and if there's one thing early season, if you want to call it, it's not a hot take. It's just a quick judgment, I guess. Not necessarily trying to go overboard. If you take one thing away from the Florida game, and I thought it was a defense that I would buy into, if you had to pick one thing, defense. Again, and with Cincinnati, what's the common denominator here? It's the defense. You could buy, there's a big play. Cincinnati had 2 passing plays, though, 20 and 25 yards, 2 long ones, compared to what Florida had 4 passes that accounted for 99 yards. Yeah. So it was minimal. It was minimal damage. Damage to say the least, but I feel like it was minimal damage. So right. I'm still in on this defense. Yeah, there's flaws, but I don't think there's any reason to expect, like you and I have been talking about. I mean, these guys are going to be a nationally ranked defense, top 10. I don't have any problem. And maybe if they take those steps, like we've seen in the past years, number 1, number 2, total ranked defense, scoring defense, that's definitely possible. They have shutdown tendencies.
I definitely agree with that as far as the defense is concerned. Obviously, Hill got burned a couple times. There were a couple opportunities where, frankly, the quarterback just missed the guy. He was open. So I do think you have to worry about that against a team like Penn State coming down the line. Maybe Michigan State a little bit. Maybe we'll get to that game later. But I do think those kind of things concern you a little bit. But the defense still did a great job overall. And I thought Cincinnati did a good job of attacking in space on the perimeter. They did a good job of running those screens in particular situations. And it reminded me from a purely defensive standpoint of the UCF game a lot from last year, where they actually got some big plays, but really you felt like the defense played better, but that they kept it just frisky enough, so to speak, to where you could be a little bit concerned on the defense. Overall, I'm totally with you. I think this is a really, really good defense. I think it's more of just clean up the flaws on special teams. And, to your point, as far as Peoples-Jones with the punt return game, Michigan's a better team with him out there on the punt returns. I don't think there's any doubt. Perry is a nice, fine player. I think he'd do a good job there, but they need a kind of game-breaking guy there, which Peoples-Jones is, at least I believe.
Well, and I think so too. He has a game breaker tendencies, but he also can't. And again, I'm not piling this all on Donovan, but I mean that muff punt return, misfielding, that did turn the momentum of that game. I think. I don't think there's any question. So yeah, I mean you might have game breaker tendencies, but you also can't have costly tendencies, especially when you're a freshman. And I'm wondering too, what does that do to a player's psyche? I mean, I feel like they gave Donovan a couple more chances. I don't think it was such a short leash with him, like it was with Wilton against Florida.
I think too. I mean, obviously,
different thing. I shouldn't even compare that. But really, what I'm saying is they gave Donovan some wiggle room, definitely.
And I'm not trying to make it seem like it's some easy thing. But I think that's a relatively easy thing to fix over the next couple of months. A young freshman.
Right, it's correctable.
He has the skills. I mean, it's really more about, picking your situations, reacting quicker. I think, and again, I know Harbaugh said it, but I felt like this too. I felt like he was very hesitant on deciding whether to go after it or to just let it bounce. I felt like he waited a little bit too long, and it put Michigan into some uncomfortable situations on those punts. I really think that's all it's about with him, because I think he has the hands. I think he has certainly the skills once he catches the ball to take it to the house or certainly get upfield. So I think Michigan still has to feel pretty solid about I think I will add, I thought they were excellent in kickoffs. The field goal kicking was good. It's just fixing that punt return issue which I do think will be resolved here. And the punting overall, that does, to me, looks like they have taken a step back there. I don't know if that is fixable. We'll see. And then obviously the big question, which is what's going to happen with this offense here and with Spate. That's, to me, is the striking thing coming out of this game.
Couple things I do want to note about the pass coverage too. And last night, I mean, I gave some credit to Hayden Moore, the Cincinnati quarterback. I thought he did enough, even though he was only 15 of 40. He did enough to keep him in the game. I mean, that touchdown to Khalil Lewis, and he targeted Khalil 10 times, only got with him 4 times, only connected with him 4 times. He targeted Devin Gray 8 times. Devin had 3 catches for 41 yards. He targeted Mike Boone, the running back out of the backfield. He was able to connect with him a little bit, 5 of 7 for 28 yards. But I did want to mention that because even, we did see some mistakes by the secondary, but I think especially with Khalil Lewis, he's really their one of their best downfield threats. Holding him 4 of 10, I thought was decent. And I'm not saying all 10 of those attempts were directly on a corner. I'd have to break down the film, but just pass coverage as a whole, holding their star receiver to 4 catches on 10 attempts, I think is pretty good. One other thing I want to mention too, while it was an underwhelming win in several ways, this is still a game where they did win with 7 penalties for 68 yards and 3 fumbles, and they lost 2 of them. So that's,
we should add that those.
It was a pretty sloppy game, yet still somehow. And again, I look back the defense, and I think Wilton got his stuff together a little bit more in the third quarter.
And we should add as well that those fumbles were not really forced in any way. I mean, this wasn't a fumble off of a sack or something.
These were these were careless.
I don't want to use it because it sounds like a mean term, but essentially it was just stupidity. I mean, carelessness, just things that I would be very, very shocked to see if these exist in late October, November. These are just things that, you got new guys playing together. I'm sure they will be fixed for the most part over time.
I made a joke on Twitter. It seems like, I mean, they connected for a touchdown pass. It's like Kakoa and Wilton are almost doomed. I want to ask those 2 guys. I mean, is there a hex on them or something? It's because they just, that there could be something there, but yet they're just having an issue. That handoff, I'm sure both of those guys are kicking themselves in the butt for that. I mean, that was a careless play. Jim Harbaugh referenced it. He said, he wants Wilton to, belt to belt, lead it in with the eyes. And he's only doing it with 1 hand instead of 2 hands. So that is stuff that could be corrected. And I'm wondering if I don't want to use the term lazy, but maybe is it laziness? Just going in like, okay, we're going to run this play. This is going to just be boom, big yards, not even thinking about it. This is Cincinnati. I don't know if any of that had to do with it, but it was not a cleanly executed game by any means. And like I said, there were. The right side of the line, if you want to talk about that, I mean, I thought the run game was pretty good with Ty Isaac, and Kareem Walker's injured. He's not transferring. Everybody's, like I mentioned this last night, everybody wants to start immediately speculating into the reasons why a guy's not playing. There was nothing wrong with Chris Evans. Everything was right with Ty Isaac. So
I totally agree. I think Ty Isaac has locked down the number 1 running back position. I know Michigan likes to use this 3-man group or whatever they want to refer to it as, but Ty Isaac is the main guy. I thought he played very well on Saturday. I thought he played extremely well against Florida a week ago. And I was actually, I wanted to ask this to you because I was curious if you got any of the same hints, but there were multiple times in the game where I felt like Ty Isaac and the Michigan running game was starting to have success. Cincinnati was struggling with them, and for some reason, Michigan would just move away from it. Do you think that's just they're trying to diversify the offense? Maybe they wanted to get other guys involved? Or my at least inkling was that what they were trying to do is show confidence in Spate, show confidence in the receivers, and quote-unquote work on that part of the game more than just piling on yards. I was curious on your thoughts on sort of that theory, I guess.
I think it's a little bit, and I'll start with Ty Isaac because Ty Isaac, I do believe it'll still be by committee, but it's going to be feed the hot hand. So Ty Isaac is coming off a career high. Why against an SEC defense at that? Why not give the hot hand more carries? So if you noticed, like the first 5 or 6 plays were all handoffs to Ty, and it's because feed the hot hand. I mean that I think that's what you have to do with a run game. And someone tweeted a stat at me: Cincinnati had given up like 200 some odd rushing yards to Austin Peay. So go for the weakness right there. As far as with it working and then maybe going away from it, I think there are 2 things. I do believe, I do think this was a little bit run heavy during critical times.
Yeah.
Just out of, as a precautionary measure. But at the same time, I think that they wanted to show confidence in Wilton. I mean, Wilton had a couple pretty confident throws to where you're like, okay, this is what he can do. That one to Zach Gentry was pretty nice along the left hash. The one to Grant Perry down the middle, basically caught at the right hash and just cut down. Grant did all the work on that. But those were nice throws. So, yeah, I think it is a balance of trying to get him comfortable as well. And at the same time, though, and like I mentioned with the right side of the line, if you notice, the run game is predicated on the left side of the line. I think the right side was getting tired, too. So I think they're maybe going away from the run game a little bit. And I don't know if this actually totally makes sense now, because if you go away from the run game, then you're forcing them to block more for your quarterback. I just think that, I don't know. Let's exit that one and retake. I don't know what I think on that one. I'm trying to explain. It's like it is if it isn't, and it isn't if it is. It's a combination of stuff. Ask them. That's a better question for them. I'll say that. Let's move on.
Yeah. So I feel like the last thing we got to talk about with this game is really the question everybody's wondering about, and what is the deal with Spate? He's good for stretches, and then he's really rough because, I don't want to pile on the guy. I thought, look at his stats. His stats weren't terrible from the game. Just from
no interceptions.
Yeah, from a box score perspective, if you didn't watch the game, you would probably think, all right, he had a decent game. But my gosh, he missed a couple guys who were just flat out open, just overthrew him. And that may not kill them against a team like Cincinnati, but it's going to be hard if he's that inconsistent, on the road against Penn State, on the road against Wisconsin. And really, I'm not sure. Air Force is a kind of a wild card next week with their option stuff. And, Purdue has looked all right. So maybe Michigan might be getting some tests here a little earlier than we thought. I still will assume Michigan will win those games, but, he may be asked to make some of those throws here. What are your thoughts on Spate, where this is heading? I guess, just on the whole Spate, I don't want to call it controversy, but just regarding his performance here.
Okay, this one is multi-tiered, so let me start by saying, 17 to 29 for 221 yards and 2 touchdowns. On paper, that looks pretty good. If you watch the game, there's still, I get it. There's still a reason for concern, but the end of the day, and again, this is where I end the whole, if there should be another quarterback, Wilton Spate is the best option at quarterback. So at this point, it is what it is. I think of a couple different things, and even Jim Hart, Wilton mentioned it. He said that his footwork can get kind of sloppy. And Pep Hamilton has mentioned that to him. He mentioned that he has to clean that up. Somebody asked him about mechanics. Jim Harbaugh referenced the fact that they left this game feeling that they did leave, basically a lot of scoring opportunities on the field. And if you just look at these past 2 games in general, how many just passing touchdowns, really? Whether the one that was called back that should have counted against Florida, a couple wide open guys. We're talking 2, 3, maybe 2 or 3 extra passing in reality, not just speculate. These guys were wide open. So I get that too. And the lack of, like with the passing game, it has the flashes. And again, I have no problem saying that Wilton Spate is the guy for this offense. I know that, but again, I don't think there's any debate about that. If he gets to the level that he got to last year when Michigan won 9 games in a row with him as the starting quarterback. And I mean, and people were citing last night the Ohio State game. Yeah, he wasn't fantastic during that game. The Florida State game, yeah, he wasn't fantastic during that game. I mean, even the Michigan State game, yeah. And someone even mentioned the Wisconsin game, which was a pretty good defensive battle. But I reply with this: without Wilton Spate, you're not even in those games.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can't refute that. That's a hardcore fact. Without Wilton Spate, Michigan wasn't in any of those games in the first place. Even the Florida game, which wasn't pretty, he threw 2 pick sixes. Without Wilton Spate, they don't win that game.
Yeah.
Or have their best chance to win, put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Jim Harbaugh mentioned this yesterday just in general about patience on having patience about the right side of the line. Mike Onwenu at guard, Nolan Aluzio at right tackle. I just wrote a column on that, so check it out on FanRag Sports at FanRag_U, FanRagSports.com. It's on my Twitter as well, at AdamBiggers81. And there's also a piece on Khaleke Hudson that I wrote this morning, so check that out as well. But he said in reference to having patience with the right side of the line, and I think that he has patience just in general with Wilton, because I think he sees everything that he's wanted to see. It's just a matter of getting it. So he said in reference to the right side of the line, but I think this is probably him in general. When he makes a decision, he says, some people call it stubborn. I call it patient.
Yeah.
So again, he didn't say this directly in connection to Wilton Spate. He was talking about development on the right side of the line with mistakes and things like that. But I do think that in general that Jim Harbaugh probably does have, if it is stubbornness, I don't think we've ever had any inclination that Jim Harbaugh could be stubborn. I don't know if we've ever seen that or not. Patient, yes, and I like that. Call it stubborn, call it patience.
Yeah.
So with that, I don't think there's any change to the quarterback situation at all. And again, with the right side of the line, I know it's a concern, but if you take away the bad, I guess, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Right side here, but take away the penalties. Mike Onwenu missed blocks. Mike Onwenu didn't play horribly. Nolan Aluzio actually, and it helped set up a field goal, which was a wasted touchdown drive to begin. It ended up being a wasted touchdown drive. We could talk about field goals that are leaving, touchdown points on the field. But Nolan Aluzio re-engaged the block after he got turned around. He re-engaged the block in the backfield, and that allowed Wilton to come up to the right side. And he got, I think it was like a 7 or 8 yard rush. They got down to Cincinnati's 12. They got in range for Quinn Nordine. So, I mean, that was on third down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a good block at a good time. And when you can do things like that, that's what that's the good, I guess. We can harp on the penalties and unsportsmanlike conduct, the holding, the missed assignments and things like that. But I don't know if that's necessarily like even the most constructive talk, because talk about what they might be able to do. I like doing that. Talk about more what can happen rather than what's not happening, I guess.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think to start off the fact, anyone who thinks there should be a quarterback change right now, I'm sorry. Like, you obviously just haven't watched. I mean, we saw John O'Korn play a game. We saw him play against a drive, 2 drives against Florida.
And exactly. But I want to say this: we haven't seen all of John O'Korn yet, and that's why he's number 2. That's the other thing with the Brandon Peters conversation. That's what ends the Brandon Peters conversation. We haven't even seen all of John O'Korn yet.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think if Peters was legitimately pushing Spade, he'd at least be the number 2 right now. So I mean, that discussion to me is over for the time being. I still think he has a bright future ahead of him, but not this year, most likely. Spade, I can't believe that someone reasonably can watch that Indiana game last year, can watch those 2 drives against Florida, and actually think John O'Korn has a better chance to lead Michigan to wins and offensive touchdowns than Wilton Spade. I don't agree. So I think if you put that up, and to me, a perfect example of the fact that the coaching staff knows where they sit is that 4th and 8 yesterday, where the offense is struggling. I mean, they're really trying to move it down the field, and 4th and 8, and Harbaugh says go for it. And to me, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier today, where I think they're trying to show Wilton, we believe in you. You're our guy. We're going to ride with you for better or worse. And I think that was, you're struggling. Hey, go out there. We're going to trust you on 4th and 8 to pick it up, which they did. They kind of had some struggles after picking up the 4th and 8, which led to a field goal eventually. But that was a big play. And I thought that was a big nod sort of from Harbaugh and Pep Hamilton and the staff to Wilton, and showed kind of how much rope they're giving him with this starting job.
That's a great point. And Thomas, I'll keep this short. Look at the time that Harbaugh does have, and I talked about time invested last night. I mean, that's how you get experience. I mean, Wilton was right there as the backup for Jake Rudock in 2015. And at that point, I think when Harbaugh got there, he knew, okay, Rudock's the bridge guy. He's our guy for right now. Start getting in with Wilton. Start doing something with Wilton. And I think that's what happened. I mean, this isn't just, okay, Harbaugh had all right, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I'm going to pick a guy. I feel like he's known, even going back to the stuff that he said last year, he's known that Wilton is the guy for at least 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Jim Harbaugh has enough foresight as a coach to where he's got to be comfortable with the quarterback situation for at least a little bit of time before he even pays attention to anything else. And he's never said that. I am speculating on that part, but given that he's a former quarterback and given, I did ask him a question about, relationship with Will and that kind of stuff. I don't think I'm stretching that at all.
Yeah.
I do. I believe that's probably true. So this hasn't just been I picked Wilton over John O'Corn and Brandon Peters during training camp. Wilton's been the guy since Jake Rudock was the starter. It's just Wilton had to wait his turn. And this is going on the 3rd season Jim Harbaugh's had with Wilton Speight. So absolutely, going back to your point about him showing confidence, he wouldn't have done that if he didn't think Wilton had it in him.
Yep.
Wilton wouldn't be the starter if Jim Harbaugh didn't think Wilton had it in him.
Yep.
End of conversation. But you have a microphone? Drop the mic right now. That's the drop the mic moment. He's got one. There we go. That's the drop the mic moment.
Drop it because I need it.
I'm on a big head. Derek Nix, RIP to the competition. Hashtag. That's what that was. For all you any state fans out there, you remember Derek Nix's tweets.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I was going to add though, outside of that, which to me, I think Michigan fans, frankly, just need to come to terms with the fact that, well, I should say not Michigan fans, some Michigan fans need to come to terms with the fact that Wilton Speight will be the quarterback this year, barring injury. Okay, yes. Like you can talk about 2018 and 2019 all you want, but he's going to be the guy this year for better or worse. And I think the more important question is, what does that leave you with? And I think the thing is we've watched Speight, and maybe I'm wrong. I think he's making great decisions. I think he's shown great pocket presence. I think he's done 80 to 90% of the things really well that you want. Because every time he throws a pass, I always feel like, oh, okay, that's a nice decision. Usually the guy's open. Usually he puts the ball in a solid spot. The issue is those passes where it's just, you got to make that. I mean, if you want to be a top 10 championship quality team, when Donovan Peoples-Jones is running out open along the,
I am behind. Yeah, I agree. You have to hit that.
I mean, I understand you're going to miss a couple of those every game. I mean, he's not Aaron Rodgers. We're not expecting him to get every completion, but those kind of things are killer, especially on third downs. When the offense is struggling for consistency, you gotta pick those up. You got to keep the drives going. And I will say as well, I think that was another thing that played into some of the defensive struggles were the number of 3-and-outs, the number of short possessions, getting the defense back on the field. And I think the thing is Speight, he just needs to cut down on those. I mean, hit those throws. If he hits those throws, Michigan will be just fine against just about every team on its schedule. Maybe maybe that's not enough to get them past Ohio State. I don't know. I mean, granted, they just lost last night, I guess.
And let's see where this defense can go, because I mean, this can be a B plus grade offense and still be a contender with an A plus quality defense. I do believe that.
Yeah,
I think you can get by with a B plus offense if you have this A plus. Let's go Harbaugh A plus defense. We'll see if we'll see if the defense gets to that point.
yeah,
But yeah, I think you can have a pretty good offense. You don't need that elite, super crazy offense that's going to light you up. Although I do think that we're going to see a lot more offensive firepower. I'm surprised to see. I mean, only 229 yards. Yeah, it's okay box score, but this is, frankly, I mean, I talked so big before this game. We'll see John O'Corn by midway through the third quarter. At that point, I figured Wilton probably had 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, and boom, call it a day. Read a magazine,
yeah.
do something.
I mean,
have,
it was,
have fun.
like you said, it was an underwhelming win. And I think the big question is because, again, like I said, I think there's 2 ways to take this game, and it's is this the harbinger of things to come? Should red flags and alarm signals be going off, or is this the thing? Somebody brought this up last night, and I thought it was a great point. Clemson lost to Pitt at home last year. They ended up winning the title.
Right.
I mean, how many games did Ohio State over the last 3 years play like complete garbage?
Okay, but look at Penn State last year. In the beginning of the game, Penn State is, oh my God, everybody's just dumping on Penn State, and then they lose 49-10 in Michigan, and it's like, James Franklin's getting ready to lose his job, and then what happened? Penn State had to laugh. Penn State, I mean, that finish, and again, that Big Ten championship game last year in Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium, that was a hell of a comeback. I'm like, at halftime, I'm like, I can't believe this is the conference title game.
Mm-hmm.
It's done by halftime. But it wasn't.
Right? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it is hard to gauge teams early in the year, but I think it's safe to gauge defense early in the year, I guess.
I think the thing for me is I think there are things to still be very excited about. I'll be honest, today, I know someone just commented, Michigan bumped up to number 7 in the AP poll today. Do I honestly think Michigan's the 7th best team in the country today? Probably not. But can they be by the end of the season? Yeah, they could probably be better. But I still think you can't overreact on a week-by-week basis to games like this, specifically when you have – what did they win? They won by 22 points, right? Over 3 touchdowns. Right. I think we should at least reel it back a little bit. I still think this is a really good team with a lot of talent, but they clearly have some warts that hopefully will dissolve here in the next couple of weeks before they play what looks like a pretty challenging last few weeks of the season.
My final thoughts before we end it, guys. I want to see more tight end play. I want to see the right side of the offensive line. I think that works. I mean, if you realistically look at the passes that Wilton throws to his tight ends, those are some of his better passes. I mean, they're shorter routes, and that kind of feeds into he can't throw the long ball thing. But again, he's got 3 touchdown passes this year of 30 or more yards. 2 of them are for 40 or more yards. Not all 46, or 40 some yards in the air, but the one to Kakoa was, that was right there. So, basically more tight end play. I'm wondering, how much more we're going to see in that regard. And they keep running the ball like this. I don't think there's really the defense, and you keep running the ball like this. This is still, in my mind, a 9-win team. Again, like I said, maybe they catch fire a little bit. Other teams stumble. Ohio State's already had a stumble. We'll see how that affects the Buckeyes throughout the season. And maybe, that there's something could get in the works for a 10-win team. So I want to thank everybody for watching us live today on YouTube on the Sports in the Mitten channel live stream. Don't forget, subscribe and like this one. Subscribe and like my personal channel, Adam Biggers, on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. You can read all my Michigan and Michigan State stuff. We didn't talk about the Spartans. Good win for the Spartans. Not a great win, good win. We could talk about that more tomorrow during tomorrow's show. And again, search Sports in the Mitten on Facebook, at Sports in the Mitten. on Twitter at Mitten Sports MI. Follow FanRag Sports at FanRag_U. And I will tweet out the winner for our Mr. Spots score challenge. I don't believe we had a dead-on score, Thomas, but the winner will get their free half-state or ticket. I'm sorry, it's on a delay, but I'll do it today. I'll tweet out the winner. So, and again, MrSpots.com, 808 State Street in Ann Arbor. I'm Adam. He's Thomas. Thanks for watching.
Yep. And one last thing. Sorry, Adam.
Well, yeah, tell them where they can follow you. I'm in a rush to just close this thing down.
Yeah, I'm
okay,
Thomas Beindit. You can follow me on Twitter at Beindit. And I wanted to mention briefly, shout out to Eastern Michigan going on the road, knocking out Rutgers.
Nice job. Nice job. I called it. It's on record. It's on Twitter. I called it. I did.
think Rutgers will end this season with 3 losses to the state of Michigan. So it should be a fun one.
Ouch. Ouch. And I mean, it's tough. And I'm not dogging on Eastern. Eastern Michigan actually had a good year last year. They went to a bowl game, once set the 7-5 during the regular season, and beat like Bowling Green. Trying to think of other teams. I just tweeted out, looked at their schedule the other day. They had like few pretty decent wins.
Well, they were talking about shutting down their football program like a year and a half ago. And
so credit Coach Creighton, Chris Creighton down there.
That's why it was very amusing, to watch Rutgers lose that game, but also awesome for Eastern Michigan. I'm sure they're celebrating. And
hey, but this is just going to be funny. Did Eastern provide a copy of the roster? Because I'm wondering if that was a problem. Maybe Rutgers didn't know who Eastern had.
Maybe
and just kind of overlooked them a little bit.
Eastern here instead of Michigan.
Yeah, Rutgers. If I went with a 56-6 prediction with Cincinnati. I was clearly wrong. Okay, maybe stretched it a little bit, slightly overconfident. But my Rutgers, I'm sticking with that thing until it happens, and that is going to be a massacre. It will be, Thomas.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that week because it'd be the icing on the cake. We'll leave after this. So now you got me going on this. The icing on the cake would be if like a Rutgers player said something about they're going to shock the world or do something. If there's any peep out of Rutgers about anything, I would be like, God, you guys are you're already done for. Now you really did it. So.
Yeah. But I had to get them in there. But anyway, thanks for everyone for checking us out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe on iTunes, and we'll see you all next time.
That was bonus coverage right there after the ending. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.